I knelt down and prayed, and I was like, and I told God this. I was like, this is too hard. I'm done. I've tried. I'm done. 2 missionaries walk past, and I'm in the car. They're walking straight past me. They say hi, and I'm gonna say hi back. And so we start talking, and they're like, your spirit is too strong to be done.
Hey there, I'm Jordan Turner with the podcast feelsonow, where we get to hear stories from people who have experienced God in their life. For me, these experiences, the intensity of them sometimes kind of fade over time, or I just don't remember them. So the purpose of this is to hopefully feel again what it is that they felt in the beginning of their conversion, and hopefully help you to do the same as well. So we have with us Michelle Striplin.
Hi.
As our first guest, yeah. Michelle, thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you for having me.
So, since this is the first one, I just wanted to kind of just go through your whole life journey. Where were you born?
Australia, Sydney, Australia.
And that's where the cool accent comes from.
Yes.
So, did you grow up in a religious family? Tell me about what it was like growing up.
So yes, my mum basically raised me. My dad, he was around till I was 7, and then he passed away. But my mum, she has always been religious, and so we kind of started off as like Catholic. I remember going to like a Catholic church, and then I think around age 6, I went to like a Pentecostal church, and then when I was about 7, my mum found the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and that's what we've been ever since.
Okay, cool. So you still have memories of kind of jumping around to different churches?
Yeah. And I knew it was a big deal when we joined the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. To my family, like extended family, like aunts and cousins and stuff, because everyone was like pretty strictly Catholic.
Oh, okay.
So
a little bit of resistance, a little bit of frustration.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was just like, why? They were like, why do you feel like you need to look for something else? And so...
And did your mom ever tell you why?
She just always felt like something was missing. And she also said the feeling that she felt was just more pure than feelings that she's felt. Like, I don't know, she just felt the spirit really strong, I guess.
So for all intensive purposes, your mom joined the church when you were 7.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so pretty close afterward, you were baptized as well around the same time?
Yeah. I was baptized at 8. So it was me, my sister, and my mum who was being taught. And my mum was baptized when I was 7. My sister, she decided not to get baptized until a year after my mum. So she actually, I was really mad at her because I wanted to have a double baptism. But she's like, no, I can't wait. Like, I've decided I'm going to get baptized. I can't wait any longer. So she like got baptized pretty quick. But like 2 weeks later, I got baptized. I was like, seriously, couldn't wait. But anyway, so she was 18. So we're 10 years apart. And in Australia, 18 is like when you're legal to go out clubbing, to drink legally, to smoke, gamble, do whatever you want. And so it was a pretty big deal that she was like fresh 18 and decided to leave her party life and do that. But
so you get baptized at 8, and then what happens next? Are you in primary every Sunday? What did it look like?
Yeah.
Was faith a big important part of your family, or was it just like kind of something you did on the weekends?
Yeah. So I would say it was a very integral part of our lives. It wasn't just a Sunday thing. We lived the commandments and like read our scriptures every day, and we did all the things. We were pretty rock solid, and we loved our ward. So like like the people who came to church with us, I don't think they had many converts, and so they just were so welcoming to us and just like loved us wholeheartedly. And so it was very easy to feel like we could fit in and like go to church and feel welcome.
You had a community immediately.
Yeah, it was really nice. So we would go to church, and my sister, she actually got married when I was 12 and moved to America.
Oh, okay.
And so that was that's when it started to shift, like the church family life dynamic.
Okay.
She moved to America, and then me and my mom would like go to church by ourselves, but it just didn't feel the same. And I don't know if she was like the rock that like kind of kept us doing what we should be doing. We also had to move, so we were in a different ward, and that ward was
A little bit more cliquey.
a little more cliquey, and we didn't feel like we fit in as much, and we also weren't new converts anymore, so it wasn't like important to fellowship.
There's a little bit of this like excitement and like more of a gathering around people right as they get baptized, and then after you're not a new convert, sometimes we're like, well, you're good to go, right? You don't need friends anymore, right?
Yeah. And so I feel like because we weren't the new fresh converts anymore, I think my mom kind of felt like she didn't belong in that particular ward, or I don't really know. But what I remember is Satan is very tricky, because when I wanted to go to church, I felt like my mom didn't want to go to church. And when my mom wanted to go to church, I didn't want to go to church. And so it was very like this like battle of like, So I remember going throughout my like adolescent years, but I definitely would say that when I hit around 12, 13, I started to rebel and not really care about church. Not think that I remember thinking like, I don't need this. I'm good. And so, but I always felt so good when I went. So
interesting.
Yeah, and so that's where the shift came of like, I did want to go, but then sometimes I wouldn't feel like that.
Okay, so there's like a rebelling period when you said about 13, 14, that's when it was?
Yeah, it was more like 12. It was pretty much as soon as my sister left, I was like,
well, I don't really want to do this anymore.
I just felt like abandoned by her. And so I think I blamed God for that. I don't really know. I was just like, I don't know. I think I had like a lot of abandonment issues at that time, because I felt like my dad died, my sister left. Like, why is God doing this? Like, I don't know.
So then it kind of led to the, I don't really need this. What has God done for me kind of thing.
I think so.
So about 12 to 13, you're starting to experiment with drinking. What's next? Does it continue that way?
So it's like more partying now. Just partying, getting drunk, and kissing boys.
Sure.
So that was pretty weekend after weekend, pretty much, until I came back to church, really.
And when was that?
I think I was 18 when I felt like there was more to life than what I was living. And I felt the need to come back to church or like figure out what the more to life was. Because I felt like I was like living for the weekend. Like I was living to get wasted drunk to forget about my life.
It was almost like an escape.
Yeah, 100%. It was an escape, and it was like a confidence thing. Like I felt like I remember coming back to church and like it clicked, like I'm a child of God. Like I don't know. It's like that doesn't really mean a lot. I don't know. I feel like we say it so much.
It becomes cliche, almost like we just tune it out because we've heard the phrase so much, right? Yeah.
But when I like really thought about it, I was like, I am made in the image of God. I am like a literal child of God. How like there is so much I'm capable of, and I did not have that confidence, and it gave me so much confidence knowing that I'm a child of God.
Interesting. So in the moment though, like let's go back to where you're in the party time of your life. Mm-hmm. Did you have fun? Did you like it?
I mean, yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, right?
Like even now, sometimes I'm like, oh, I wish I could just escape and just let loose and let go and do all that stuff, because it was just so nice, but it's not worth it. Like it was never worth it. So,
okay, there has to be a turning point. You decide, I'm gonna go back to church, or I'm gonna start praying? Like, what was the thing that you're like, I'm gonna dip my toes back into this? Or did you just jump full force right back in?
I tried to jump full force, but it was very hard. Like, it didn't really pan out that way, but I tried. So I remember thinking, like, there's more. I think I woke up one day and I was like, there is more to life than what I'm living right now. And like a hymn came into my mind. Like, I think I literally woke up and a hymn or a primary song or something, like, and it was like, I think it was like, I want to see the temple. Like, and I remember as like a 10-year-old in primary, like learning about the temple, like I still remember those teachings. And I was like thinking about the temple, and I think I was in my boyfriend's bed, which was so hilarious because I was just so far away from getting married in the temple that I think I was like, well, I'm never gonna get there. So if I'm gonna go back to church, like I need to be okay with never loving someone again or someone loving me. I think I felt so far from what like desirable. Like Satan, he worked on my confidence. I was like I really didn't have any self-confidence, which was like kind of ironic, like fun, like, yeah, I don't know. Looking back, I should have had all the confidence in the world, but I didn't.
Why? What do you mean? What do you mean you should have had all the confidence in the world?
Well, I feel like there was nothing to be not confident. I feel weird saying this, but like I was pretty, I was popular. I feel like I had everything going for me, but I felt like I was nothing.
So you were thinking doing all those things, like living maybe your life in that I can do whatever I want to, frees you and gives you all this confidence to like try anything you want to, right?
Yeah.
But for some reason, you kept on feeling empty.
Yes, I felt so empty. And I remember thinking when I was like coming back to church, I felt like I was like being pulled in two different directions because I knew what I wanted, but I also felt like Satan was like, but you could never get there. Like, and just
so you're being worked on both sides, almost. Like if you want to say that, like God was like you can come, like I'm wanting you to come back, and then Satan's like, you could never make it back, like you never will have it.
But anyway, so after I woke up, felt the hymn, I was like, okay, I'm doing it. I'm going to Bishop this Sunday.
Wow.
And so I went to Bishop that Sunday in my ward that I've never been to.
Yeah.
Because we moved again, and so I had never actually been to that ward before. And I remember walking in, and I was by myself. My mom didn't come. She had not gone to church in a really long time at this point. I think both of us haven't gone for a really long time. And I think she didn't want to go to this new ward because she was like scared of like her past experience of going to a new ward.
It's kind of cliquey.
And she just was like, yeah, you can go, that's good for you, but I'm not. And so I remember sitting there and I just felt so awkward. Like I felt like I was surrounded by families and I was just by myself. And I remember thinking like, this is about families being together forever, but I'm here alone. And I remember thinking, like, I am sitting here no matter what. Like, if I come back to church and this, like I'm back, no matter what my family situation looks like, if I have to sit at church by myself, I am going to. And because of this, like, I know that I can. Like,
wow.
So it was pretty cool. Like, because I do remember feeling like awkward, and then I like had that realization like,
I will do it no matter what.
Yeah, and why am I here? I'm here for God. I'm not here for anyone else. And so even if, it was back to the self-confidence thing. I like felt like people were like, why is she here? And then it was funny because one of the first conversations I had with someone when they introduced, because I was a new face, they were like, hey, like, who are you, basically? She was like, oh my gosh, and I told her like, I'm a member, but I haven't come in a while. And I think I said, like, this is my first time at this ward. And she was like, oh, I thought you were a returned missionary. And I was like, that's hilarious. Anyways, but I ended up seeing Bishop either that Sunday or the next Sunday. And I told him everything. Yeah. And I was like, I just want a clean slate, basically. And I just bawled my eyes out to him and told him absolutely everything so that I could start fresh. And he basically was like, you're forgiven, basically. And like, because I remember saying like, can I take the when can I take the sacrament? And he was like, you can take the sacrament next week. And I just like bawled my eyes out, and I was like, I don't feel worthy, one. Yeah. And two, I'm like, why? Like, why and I can't remember what he said, but I remember calling my sister after and telling her, like, I told Bishop everything. And mind you, my sister's been active the whole time. She's never gone less active. So she's always been praying for me. She's like, this is God just like welcoming you back, like open arms. Like, I've been waiting for this. Like, come back to me, basically. And I just remember bawling and thinking, wow, that's amazing. He's so forgiving.
So end of story, happy ending?
No,
everything was great?
Absolutely not, which I wish, like, looking back, what I know now, I wish I could have just stayed strong and been active. I remember, I think it was that next weekend, after I had talked to Bishop, it was my birthday, and I had already planned like a party with my friends.
Okay.
And I was like, I'm not gonna drink. Like, I'm not doing it. I already went to Bishop. I have a clean slate. I'm not gonna drink. Right. And I had told my boyfriend, like, look, I'm coming back to church. I was with him, I think, for 4 or 5 years, like, since I was like 15 or 14, and I was turning 19.
Okay.
And so he, like, was great. He was like, this is great for you. This isn't for me, but I'll support you. And I was like, okay. And so I was like, well, we need to, like, stop doing certain things. And he was like, that's fine. And
wow.
I was like, yeah, which I was shocked.
Yeah,
I was like,
good guy.
Okay. And I'm like, I want to wait till marriage now. And he was like,
from here on,
like,
yeah,
from here on out.
Yeah.
And he was like, he was surprisingly like, okay. And I was like, well, do you want to get married, like, young? And I think he was like, yeah, like, maybe not like now, but like in a few years. And I was like, can you, like, wait?
Right.
And he was like, yeah. And I was like, okay.
Wow.
I know, it was actually really nice.
Not what you expected, I'm assuming.
No. Yeah. Well, I don't know. He was a really good guy. So I kind of did expect it, but I expected him to put more of an effort into, like, getting the missionary discussions and stuff like that. Whereas he was like, not for me. Like, completely not.
He had some boundaries still.
Yeah. Like, he was like, I was like, will you come to church with me? And he was like, probably not.
Okay.
And I was like, okay.
At least he was honest, right?
Yeah. So, and I kind of expected that. So, yeah, so it was my 19th birthday, and I was like, no, I'm not drinking. And then I think I was there from like 9, and then around midnight, I just caved and then drank. And it kind of snowballed because I drank. I felt like, well, I may as well do everything else. And so, like, that all happened, and I felt like such a failure and like such an idiot, and like the next day, and I just thought, like, what was the point in that? Like, and I think I was too ashamed to go back to Bishop like straight away. I think it took like a month. I don't really remember like the details of timing, but I eventually went back to him and I told him everything that had happened, and it wasn't the same conversation. It was like, you now know better. And I remember the one thing he said, he's like, God loves you and he's happy that you're here, but he will not be mocked. And
that's interesting.
So yeah, and so he's like, you can't take the sacrament for a while. I don't actually know the timing of it.
But for some time, yeah.
Yeah, I do remember that I wasn't taking the sacrament on and off until I was engaged to my now husband.
Wow, okay. So let's go back. So Bishop tells you it's not the same experience as, I guess, your first time going to the bishop.
Yeah.
And he says, like, hey, like, this is going to be a little bit different. How did you feel in that moment?
I was like, yeah, I deserve that.
Okay, so this is interesting. So you felt like, did you feel like it was kind of like a punishment, or did you feel like it was more like, no, I need to kind of do something, is more for you, or like?
I think at that specific time, it didn't feel like a punishment, but it did eventually, because I felt like down the road, I get further and further away from that life, but I still felt like he was treating me as if I was still at the beginning of the process,
the bishop.
towards the end of the process.
The bishop in particular?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, bummer.
But he actually ends up getting released like a month before I moved to Brisbane. And that the bishop who replaces him is like one of a good, like he became a good family friend. Like his wife taught Institute when I started to come back to church, and she just like loved me. Like she was just great. She just made me feel really welcomed and like I was doing something, and it was nice. So anyways, I became really close to that family, and I know that when people say like you go to bishop, you think like this is coming from Christ. And I remember thinking like I don't feel the love of Christ like with that first
bishop, yeah.
But I felt
maybe the first time you did.
Yeah.
But then after that, yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, with this new bishop, I was like, oh, this is what Christ would have done. Because I had to tell him some hard things as well, and some things I was really embarrassed about, especially because I was more actively involved. I think I like talked in church at that point, and like I like was starting to do my mission papers and stuff like that. So yeah, he was very loving.
So it sounds like there's like a couple barriers, maybe not barriers, but trials to actually like coming and fully accepting yourself and fully accepting, I don't know, I guess your conversion coming back. Mm-hmm. One of them being like, obviously, some of the things you did before is hard to actually cut some of those habits. And then another one, some of the people don't always let you come back easily.
Yeah.
You know? Okay, so you, new bishop comes in. It seems to be like he's starting to see your progress going in it. You start even putting your mission papers in. Mm-hmm. So at this point, like, what's next?
Yeah, so I think I had struggled. So it was like the course of like a year of me like wanting to come back to church, but I just kept like stuffing up, kept drinking, I don't know, going back to my old boy. So I think at this point I had broken up with this guy because I was like, I really want to get married in the temple. Like if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this.
All the way, yeah.
Right. And I think what changed, because I just thought I would never be in love, is like when I started going to dances, like people were asking me out on dates. And I remember thinking like, when the first guy who asked me out on a date, I remember saying like, why would you want to date me? Like, why?
Wow.
Like,
how did he react?
He was like, why not? Like, and I think he was like shocked by me saying that, but I was like, I don't know if he like knew my story, but I like felt the need to tell everyone like, look, I'm not a virgin. I used to drink. I used to take drugs. Like, and like, I just felt like the need to tell everyone like straight away so they knew what they were getting themselves into. Like, I just felt so, I had this idea in my head that everyone who went to church was like perfect and didn't mess up. And I like think I felt so guilty for like, I didn't even like want to go to like step foot into a building because of the things that I've done. Like I didn't realize like it's okay to make mistakes and go to church. Like that's literally the reason why we go to church is because we're imperfect people trying our best. And I didn't get that then. I like thought everyone who went to church did the right thing, basically.
When did that shift for you?
I think I met a girl in YSA and I told her my life story because I tell everyone because I just wanted everyone to like, I don't know, know what they were getting themselves into, I guess. I really don't know why I felt the need to do that, but I did. And she was like, oh my gosh, me too. Like everything I said, she was like, me too. And I was like, but wait, you've gone to church throughout the years. Like you still went to church. She's like, yeah, I just didn't tell anyone. I was like,
okay, different, yeah.
I was like, oh, so like she ends up being like my best friend. Like we are like two peas in a pod. And this particular YSA, it was the first YSA event I went to by myself. There is no chance I would have gone to any YSA thing by myself. Like that was crazy that I went. Like I don't know, I don't like usually you go with friends. And anyways, I met her that one time and then I went to everything with her from then on out. Like so she really helped me because she made me realize like, oh, like this is a church for imperfect people. It's not, everyone is not perfect, and it's okay to come. It's okay that I made mistakes and that I want to come back, like, or that I'm coming to church, like, and making mistakes at the same time. So
yeah, we're all a work in progress, right?
Yeah.
So then you meet this friend, changes your life.
Yeah.
And you're able to kind of move on in some ways.
Right. Yeah.
So what's next? What happens next?
So I'm still like dipping my toes in my old life, trying like to do better and move on. But it's just so hard. I broke up with my boyfriend, then we got back together, and it's just like back and forth with that.
Okay.
And then I remember just giving up one day, and I was like, I'm done trying. I've tried enough, like, to come back to church. It's too hard, and I'm not doing it anymore. And I remember praying. I was at my brother's house, who lived with him and his family at the time. Like, I lived with my mom, so it was like not my house. It was my brother's house, and I knelt down and prayed, and I was like, and I told God this. I was like, this is too hard. I'm done. I've tried. I'm done. And I remember, this is like so stupid, like saying this now, because I actually would get a tattoo, but I remember saying, like, what's something that can like permanently solidify that I'm done?
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm gonna get a tattoo. And so I call up a tattoo parlor, and I was like, hey, I want to get this done. Can you do it right now? And they were like, yeah, come on over. I was like, okay. So I walked down my brother's driveway, and my car's like parked right down the driveway. It's like a normal neighborhood, and it's not like a busy road or anything. It's like a random neighborhood. 2 missionaries walk past. Like, it's so random. Like,
now, are there a lot of missionaries in this area?
No.
Oh, okay.
And like, I've never seen missionaries walking in this area. One, my brother's not a member, so he has no tie to missionaries. No one on the street is members. Like, it's just insane that they were there. And obviously they were there for me, but I just remember thinking, like, okay, God, like, you heard my prayer, and you're about to say, like, you're not done. And like,
did you accept it, or were you like, no, I don't want to do this?
Kinda. I was like, I kind of like laughed in my head, because I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, I just felt, anyways. I have a really strong like love for missionaries because of how much they worked with my family to convert us. They were like they were always at our house, and my mom just loved them so much, and like would feed them, and they would be there for hours. And I remember when my sister joined, like, she had some issues with some YSA, and like the missionaries were legit her friends, and I just remember that. And
fond feelings towards them.
Yeah. And so I would never like disregard missionaries. So anyways, they're walking straight past me. They say hi, and I'm gonna say hi back. And so we start talking, and no, actually, they go to my brother's next door neighbors, and I'm in the car. Like, I think this is when I'm calling the tattoo parlor, because I was sitting in my car for a little bit. And then I hear my brother's neighbor saying, F off, like, get the F off my front door, like, blah, 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 blah. And like, just like yelling at them, and like so rude. And I felt my heart like just went out to them. And so I got out of my car, and I was like, hey, you guys okay? And they're just laughing. They just think it's so funny.
Happens all the time, I'm sure, yeah.
And I like felt so bad. I was like, I'm so sorry. Like, are you okay? And like, anyways, we start talking now. And so I don't know how it happened, but we're talking, I want to say, for like 3 to 4 hours. Like, maybe not 4, but 2 to 3, like, for sure. We were there for a long time. Like, I was talking to them, telling them my whole life story from like start to finish. And I was like, but I'm done. Like, I can't do it anymore. Like,
straight up you tell them, like, I'm done.
And they're like, your spirit is too strong to be done. Like, he's like, I got 4 things that you got to do. And I was like, okay. He's like, go back to Bishop. And I was like, He's like, go back to Bishop, tell him everything. Maybe he said 3. He was like, you're gonna go get endowed. I was like, okay. He's like, go get your patriarchal blessing, go get endowed, go serve a mission. And I was like, I can't. And he's like, just start with going to see Bishop. And then he's like, and then after that, go get your patriarchal blessing. And so I end up doing that. I go see Bishop.
Why? You didn't go to the tattoo parlor.
I know, and I didn't go to the tattoo parlor. I don't know why. I think because I just felt so seen. Like, why were the missionaries there? Like, it was just so... And
it's interesting that you say seen. Seen by who?
Seen by Christ. Like, I felt like he knew me, and in that moment was like, I'm not letting you get away. Like, I felt like those missionaries they were not there for the neighbor, clearly.
Yeah, I think they figured that out quick.
And it's honestly like so random. I remember telling them, like, why were you here? And they were like, we just felt guided and prompted. And it was just crazy. I still talk to those missionaries because they
Really?
like changed my life. And yeah, so I think from that point on, I just knew that real change needed to happen if I wanted to really change, like if I wanted to stop dipping my toes in the old life kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so when I went to Bishop, I think I like prayed so hard, like, and watched so many church talks because I just needed like guidance. And I felt so strongly like, you need to move, get out of this.
Out of Brisbane.
Out of Sydney at this point.
Okay, at this point, Sydney.
And it made sense because everything reminded me of either my ex-boyfriend or like the life that I was living because of the surroundings that I was in. Like, it was my life and that was the life I was living in. So, and I remember praying, I'm like, okay, well, where do I move? And the two places that came to mind was Brisbane or Utah. And I was like, well, how can I get there? So I like just started like trying to figure it out. And I think Brisbane just made more sense. And what's wild is my now husband lived in Utah at the time, but was from Brisbane.
At the time that you felt like it could be either or?
Yeah, like I didn't know him at this time. I went to a convention, which is like basically a YSA version of EFY, but it's over New Year's. And so like, it's basically like to get people married, like YSA married.
They bring them all together from Australia?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's like really fun. Like, it's like a big party, and like you're not forced to go to like the classes and stuff. Like, I've never been to EFY, but I assume you had to go. Yeah. And so it was like super fun, and I met a lot of like people and friends, and that's where I met Dakota. So I meet Dakota then, and I think I go back to Sydney because this was in Brisbane. It was actually in the Gold Coast, but it's like an hour from Brisbane. And I am back in Sydney, and I'm like trying so hard to like follow like what Heavenly Father said, like you need to move, blah, 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 blah. And I tried like everything. I'm like, what can I do? And I was like, oh, I'll be like an au pair, like a live-in nanny. Like I can basically live somewhere for free. I'll get like paid. It's not a ton, but like so what? But one of my main things is I still wanted to go to university, which in hindsight was like stupid because I dropped out anyway. But I could still go to university. And so I did that. So I moved to Brisbane, I found an au pair job, and I left my life. And I remember the night before I moved, I was like bawling my eyes out in the car, and I was like, why am I doing this? Like, I've never left my family. My family doesn't leave. Like, all my cousins still live where they grew up. Like, the only person who's like left is my sister, and I was like so mad at her for leaving. So I was like, what am I doing? Like, I'm moving somewhere where I have no family, not a lot of friends, and blah, 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 blah. And I remember like this feeling like you're going to get everything you want in life if you do this. And it was like I felt like God was giving me a hug. Like, I just felt like warm and peaceful.
In the car.
Yeah, like as I was like crying, like the tears like stopped, and I just felt like literally like I was being hugged, and it was like I just felt so at peace. And I really did feel like if you do this, like you are going to come back to church. Like, that's what I thought everything I wanted in life was going to be. Like, I don't know. And yeah, so I moved to Brisbane. 2 weeks later, my now husband, is coming to Brisbane for his birthday for 2 weeks because he's visiting his family.
He's living in Utah.
He's living in Utah. And I don't think anything of it. Like, we had been like, so we both broke up with the people we were with at around the same time. And ever since then, he slid into the DMs and we were like talking on and off. But I was like, it was just like friendly. It wasn't, I don't know. I did have a crush on him. I think I knew he liked me, but I was like, you live in Utah. Like, what?
Yeah, you're being realistic about it. Okay.
Yeah. And anyways, I didn't realize the type of person he was. He gets what he wants, basically.
Okay.
Anyway, so he comes over to Brisbane for his birthday, and we are like inseparable for like, so I had just moved there, like literally maybe even a week. Like, it was, I remember when I was talking to the au pair family, they're like, do you have a boyfriend? And I was like, no. And I think that was like a real selling point. And it was funny because right after, like, we were nearing the end of the 2 weeks to Dakota's trip in Australia, and I was like, well, we basically said we loved each other at this point. Like, it went very fast. Like, we were just inseparable. Like, could not hang out. I was at his house till like 3 a.m, and we were just talking like the whole time. And wow. Yeah, it was just a lot of fun, actually. And I really fell in love with him, and I was like, wow, like, you can fall in love, like,
with other people in the church. Yeah. Wow.
It was just funny because I really believe that some people just get married to like get married in the temple.
Right. You want to make it to the celestial kingdom? Me too. Let's do it. Right.
Yeah. But I know that's like not majority of the case, or the case. Anyways, he ends up saying at the end of the 2 weeks, like, look, I'm going to move back. I was like, you can't move back for me. So he like made this other excuse, like, I'm going to go back to school or something like that here instead, because he was going to BYU, but he like kept deferring for some reason. So he moves back. We date for like 5 months, and I think I'm like right before he proposes is like the first time I'm able to take the sacrament for a while. Yeah, like I think throughout our relationship. And I remember sitting in church with him like the first time, feeling so awkward because I was like, I can't take the sacrament and he's gonna know. Yeah. Like, and so I think I told him, I mean, I definitely told him my whole life story, but I don't know if I told him that I couldn't take, I don't know, I can't remember. But
regardless, you felt a little nervous about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he had like just gotten off, I think his mission, he like had gotten off his mission like 8 months before that. So I like still thought he was pretty fresh and like, I don't know.
He's perfect.
Yeah, he was perfect. And yeah, so I don't know. That kind of, we just started dating, got engaged, got married, and I feel like I've been pretty solid ever since.
That's really cool. So some things that I'm getting from this is, first off, your conversion wasn't one experience.
No. Even when I was 8 years old, I remember praying, like, because I wanted the double baptism with my sister, and she was like, have you even prayed, like, to get baptized? Okay. And I was like, no. And I, like, still remember to this day, like, where I was, what I said, and what I felt with that prayer. And I remember I was watching TV, and I was at my auntie's house, because I would go there after school, and I was by myself watching TV in the garage, and I just felt like I needed to pray right then. So I turned the TV off and I knelt down and I was like, Heavenly Father, should I get baptized? Is this the right thing to do? And I remember the feeling like, yes, like you should get baptized and you will feel the Spirit throughout your life. And it's crazy because I have felt the Spirit throughout my life. Even when I wasn't making good decisions, I still felt like even if I made a bad decision, I knew right from wrong. Like, I don't know how to explain it. It was like...
You felt almost guided, Like,
Yeah.
hey, this probably isn't the right thing to do, and you're like, yeah, I'm going to do it anyway, kind of a thing?
Kind of, and I also felt like I still held values. For instance, like, I had sex with the boyfriend of a 5-year relationship, but because I thought I was going to marry him.
Oh,
Like,
interesting.
there was no doubt in my mind.
There's kind of an underlying, like,
Yeah.
still value under
Right.
there. Yeah.
And, like, I still held values even though I didn't follow them fully. I don't know.
So that's interesting, yeah. And so kind of going back to this whole, like, your conversion, it's like, why is that? Like, even in the times that you were like, I'm done, like, it still felt like there's this undercurrent of, like, God and you accepting God in your life, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Some people, when they're like, I'm done, it's almost like a door closes. But
Yeah.
for some reason, it felt like you had a doggy door that was always open, that he's
Yeah.
like, hey,
Yeah.
you're not quite done yet, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. I truly do think it's because I got baptized at 8 and I had, like, the Spirit with me. And, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, it never left. Like, really. I mean, yeah. I do think about that because I was like, even when I like felt like God wasn't in my life, I kind of knew he was. Like,
Interesting.
it was just, he was always there, but it was whether or not I decided to let him in or not.
And I wonder if that's also part of it too, is it's like you had an experience at a young age where you felt the Spirit and you knew that you did.
Mm-hmm.
And like you had a couple other experiences, it sounds like, where something similar happened. So anytime that maybe you were making a decision that you knew in the back of your mind, like maybe this isn't the right thing, like do you feel like you hearkened back to those experiences to be like, yeah, like I don't know, I almost feel like there's these like moments in my life where I feel the Spirit, and regardless of if I mentally like recall them and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that, like something about that leaves like this like almost wrinkle in my life to where like I'm not consciously thinking about it, but it still is influencing my decisions and how it is that I think in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if that's something similar. You've had a lot of conversion experiences that led up to like, and that's the thing, it doesn't sound like it led up to one big ultimate conversion experience that like, okay, now you're good.
Yeah.
It's almost like the accumulation of all of your experiences led you to a point where you finally decided like, okay, we're gonna do this.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that is true. And like when I got engaged and got married, like it really was the life that I hoped for.
Really?
Yeah. Like
so that felt like almost like a legitimate promise from God that you saw like come true.
Yeah. And like even now, like years later, so we didn't have kids for 4 years, but I always wanted to be like a young mom. Like the life I'm living right now is like what I always prayed for, basically, like truly.
The name of this podcast is Feel So Now, and it's based off of a scripture where it says, if you felt to sing the song of redeeming love, I would ask you, can you feel so now? Mm-hmm. And so like our conversion experiences often are like moments, but that scripture reminds me like, what am I doing in order to be able to try and have that same fire, that same kind of passion that maybe I did in those moments, right? So what do you do now to try and like keep that with you?
Yeah, that's like so interesting, like that question, because I have not felt the same level of like intensity of feeling the Spirit or feeling guided at least.
Yeah.
Since moving to Brisbane. Like since that prayer of like, what do I do now? I felt so like, you need to do this. Like God was like, you need to move. Like
wow.
It was like a voice was telling me like, you need to move. And basically a voice saying Brisbane or Utah, which was pretty funny. But I have not felt like a direct, like, you need to do this ever since then. And I think that's kind of been hard. So like when you felt like you have direct guidance on what to do, it's like you, especially if it's so straightforward and like basically like a voice telling you like, and giving you direction, it's so hard to not want that again, because it's kind of makes it easier in a way, like to just follow. But I felt like, I think God gives you those like moments or like directions when they're like very pivotal moments. Like, I felt that directness when I got baptized. I felt that directness when I came back to church, or like when I was like done and like the steps I needed to do. Like, that was like a very pivotal moment in my life. Like, if I didn't do what those missionaries said, or if I didn't move, like, my life would look very different. And so that's kind of hard. And I think a lot of new converts, especially, they're on like this spiritual high because they've never felt this feeling before. And so when you kind of live the gospel day to day, it kind of becomes like
monotonous.
Yeah. And I think I hit that, I want to say, like last year. Last year was so hard spiritually. I don't know what it was, but I was just struggling. And my husband said to me, you know, you've had so many like experiences where you didn't need like the doctrine like to tell you that the church is true, or you had your own experiences that told you that the church is true and why you should be like following the teachings and stuff. And I remember him saying, like, maybe it's time you like actually study the scriptures.
And kind of like get in, yeah.
Yeah,
I see what you're saying.
And like lean more into the doctrine, or lean more into like things that you didn't need before but you probably need now. And that never occurred to me because I never needed it. Like, I never needed to like dig deep in the scriptures, or I never needed to like do certain things because I guess I got my own confirmation in other ways. But now I definitely need them. So reading the scriptures, listening to conference talks, saying my daily prayers, those are definitely things that help me now. That definitely helped me back then, but it wasn't necessarily those things that got me to here, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I feel like our conversion and our testimony transforms almost.
Mm-hmm.
I had a similar experience where it's like, when I finally decided to start living the way I should have, it was a spiritual high, and then a couple years after that, I had to deepen my understanding and deepen my relationship with Christ through like scriptures and things like that. That was like the next step for me too. So I think that's really common.
Yeah,
so.
Which I haven't heard anyone really talk about that, and so I just didn't. When my husband brought that up, I was like, oh, that makes so much sense. Like, I wish you told me that 6 months ago.
Too bad there's not a manual that they give right to get baptized, right?
Yeah.
And that's pretty much where we're at now, right?
Yeah.
So just kind of going through it. So conversion, multiple experiences that led you to where it is that who you become today.
Yeah.
And then what you do to try and feel so now is leaning on an understanding of Christ through reading scriptures, praying, learning more about him.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else? If you were to talk to someone, or like if there's a listener here that might feel similar to you, where maybe they're scared to go back, they don't feel like they're worthy to, I don't know, like they just don't feel lovable, what would you say to them?
I would say, I remember a talk, I think it's from Like a Broken Vessel, from Elder Holland, and he says, no one can sink further than the light of Christ shines, or something like that. And that just meant everything to me. Like, I felt like I did everything wrong except murder someone or kill someone. And I felt so unworthy. I felt like I was like scum, basically. And I don't know, Satan really drilled that into me. And I'm just so glad I don't feel that way anymore. And it's true. The atonement is real, and it's there. And it's there for everyone. And you can come back from anything, basically. Yeah.
Great. Yeah. Well, Michelle, thank you so much for being on the podcast. If you know anyone that has had a unique conversion experience or would like to share their conversion experience, please let me know in the DMs. Slide into them DMs like Michelle's husband. Thank you.